Some big news today from the New York Times. Let's throw this up there on the screen. All signs point to one Andrew Yang running for the mayor of New York City, something that Bill Clinton once called the hardest job in America. So
I would
there you
believe
go.
that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of thorny issues there. So according to the Times, Andrew has been meeting with some of the bigger power brokers in the city. So we've got Corey Johnson, the Speaker of the City Council. He plans to visit Reverend Al Sharpton in a rite of passage, something that means he's actually very serious about doing this. He's enlisted two senior prominent political strategists who worked for Mayor Michael Bloomberg, which is interesting because...
Not crazy about that part.
Yeah, but we had the panel yesterday. We do too much content here. I don't even remember. I can't remember who was saying this. Chuck, that Mike Bloomberg is actually still quite popular in the city of New York. And so you have to kind of get Bloomberg's, not endorsement, but like tacit approval whenever you're running for something there.
So we covered here the poll that was probably, I mean, it wasn't really clear. It was probably internal polling from Yang affiliated people. But one of the things they polled on was how people felt about like a de Blasio endorsement versus a Bloomberg endorsement. And there was a strong majority of voters who still said that they would take a Bloomberg endorsement, that would really matter to them. Bill de Blasio, less so. Look, I think it's really interesting. I think it's really exciting. Just because Andrew has always taken like a very fresh perspective to the problems of this country. And he has this unique combination of both a very high-level structural view of the nation and the problems that we are facing, but he also has a lot of very direct practical experience, having run companies and organizations himself. So that seems like a good mix. The problems facing New York City are going to be of historic nature. Yeah. I mean, you have to go back to it's like crises in the 70s to think of a parallel time, because in addition to how hard hit they were by COVID, de Blasio has obviously been, a bad mayor just in terms of being able to effectively run the city. They have massive budget shortfalls where they already have, they've had to cut back on sanitation, so they have trash piling up in the streets. They're having to make massive cuts to public transit. So the lifeblood of the city, the MTA, severely curtailed. That has huge impacts, in particular on the poor and working class on the city trying to get to work every day. So immense challenges, some really thorny racial issues over admissions into the elite high schools there. It's a lot that you're taking. This isn't something you just do as like a vanity play. You'd have to be insane to take on this job as a Pete Buttigieg, let me be ambassador to China kind of a move, even though that is obviously a critical position as well. So knowing Andrew a little bit, I'm sure he's taking this incredibly seriously. If he wants to run for mayor of New York, it's because he actually wants to be mayor of New York, not because his eyes are on some grander prize. That's right. No, and look, like you said, this is a real job. It's not a joke. I mean, I'm looking here at the thorniest issues. Rezoning for Soho, Flushing, Queens neighborhood. There's big zoning problems that are going on there. And this is how a lot of people vote, actually, right? It's hyper local, especially in a local election. Did you do a good job getting the trash picked up and the snow removed, right? I mean, it's so you have everything from that nitty-gritty, literal, did my trash get picked up properly and was my street plowed, to the higher level questions about, the massive homeless crisis in that city, as there is in cities across the country. You've got, low-level crime that has increased because of desperation from COVID. I mean, you just have a host of... Well, murder, too. I mean, you've got a lot of problems, right? Exactly. Right. So you have a large host of problems that you're walking into that require both high-level thinking about the overall vision and direction of the city, but also those, nuts and bolts, just making it operate properly. It's very, very tough. Also, he will have to be the greatest lobbyist in the history of man, because whoever the next mayor of New York City is going to need a multi-billion-dollar bailout in order to pass the U.S. Congress. There's just no question about it. And he can try, I don't know about that one. That is going to be a very, very tough job. I mean, we're, like you said, the last time we were here was in the 70s when Ford was basically drop dead to New York, that famous New York Post headline. I don't think that's going to happen again. But Andrew's going to have to, he would have to confront a whole host of issues, which is that right now we see mass small business closure. Who are the people gobbling up real estate in New York City? Amazon, Apple,
Google. It's basically becoming a big tech haven because they've got the money in order to make rent. I mean, financialization. The city of New York actually regulates a ton of stuff whenever it comes to Wall Street, the Department of Financial Services. You've got the policing issue, zoning, the New York City public school system. It's the largest school system in the country, I believe. And you're responsible for both running it. You can fire or hire the administrators. The amount of politics that goes into this stuff is absolutely crazy.
Negotiating with unions, all of that, yes. And I mean, politically, this is anything but a slam dunk, of course. I mean, his nonprofit, Humanity Forward, has been doing a lot of good work in for needy families in the Bronx, I think in particular, in New York City, which, by the way, is one of the hardest hit places of the country economically in terms of the coronavirus. We covered here a story of a neighborhood in the Bronx where they have like 25% unemployment. It's just, I mean, it's just devastating. So the amount of need and the massive amount of inequality in that city always create tremendous challenges. So Andrew's going to face a pretty crowded field if he does, in fact, jump into this race, which, again, it looks very much like he's going to do.
I was just looking at his competitors.
Yeah,
there are some people there, right? So we have Maya Wiley. She's famous from MSNBC. She's running there. We've got, a Citibank executive with the backing of Valerie Jarrett in the city of New York. But I think he's going to stand.
Max Rose, who was the congressman from Staten Island, very conservative. I don't think he really has a chance in hell. But anyway, he's getting
famous
in the race.
For cursing out one of his own voters and constituents, the Staten Island way. I guess I don't think anybody else would begrudge him for doing that. So
Scott Stringer is also in the race. You have some leftists who it's a crowded field. You've got a lot of people and a lot of competition. But he's got the benefit of great name recognition, national profile. He's going to be able to raise money. And so even though he hasn't come up through that New York City machine and may struggle in getting like the endorsements of the kingmakers within the city, he may have enough of an outside grassroots base of support to be able to sort of circumvent that system, which is what I'm sure he's betting on.
Certainly possible.
Going to be interesting to watch. All right, more Rising for you after this.